97.3 ESPN.com's own Eagles insider and NFL columnist over at FanRag Sports NFL, where he wrote a great piece today. Roger Goodell was on Mike and Mike this morning, and a lot of nuggets to take from that, John. His conversation with the guys. You wrote about Roger Goodell chasing viewers who cannot be caught. We discussed this a little yesterday, but he kind of talked a little bit today on Mike and Mike about some of the things that they're trying to do. And as you write, if you can't beat them, pander to them.
Yeah, and I don't see the real upside from the NFL standpoint. Look, everybody's struggling with this in the television industry, not just the NFL. If you look at ratings around the whole industry, they've sunk to new lows this year, and it's not turning around anytime soon because you basically are in the midst of the first generation that is not beholden to watching television in the traditional manner. In that, you know, when we were young, if you wanted to watch something, you had to show up at Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And maybe then VCRs came in and things of that nature. But for younger people, obviously, they have grown up. They've been indoctrinated in a system where they can just take whatever they want to watch and put it on their tablets, put it on their phones, and they're not going to sit and watch commercials. And that's an issue for television producers that make money off advertising. That's what the NFL is struggling with. But my argument is technology isn't going backwards.
No.
So this, moving forward, this is the way it's going to be. So you either have to figure out a way to monetize YouTube clips and GIFs and things of that nature, or you have to center on the viewers you already have and improve the product, which I think is the biggest problem for the NFL. So I think you should work on what you can work on and sort of chasing a dragon that you're never going to catch.
Yeah, I mean, the premise of a lot of the changes here are what? To try to speed up much like baseball is trying to figure out ways to speed up the game, that Roger Goodell is almost trying to speed up the game without tinkering the game.
Yeah, and you're right. Baseball's talked about it for years, trying to speed up the game to get younger people involved because they have a shorter attention span. But it's not going to work because, you know, what if you speed up the average NFL game last year was, I think, 3 hours and 8 minutes. If you speed it up to 3 hours and 2 minutes, do you really think this is going to get people sitting in front of their television on Sunday? If they're not doing it at 3 hours and 8 minutes, they're not doing it at 3 hours and 2 minutes. It's just as simple as that. So you can try and you know, the one thing I give them credit for is this is usually a very reactive league, and they're trying to be proactive here, but I just don't see the upside of it.
Yeah, and you know, some of the things they're trying to do, I guess, is you kind of hit on this a little bit yesterday, but he talked a little bit more about it today, which was putting in shorter commercial breaks, but less commercials, but they're actually longer. He talked about this morning on Mike and Mike, which was to cut out some of the promos that were read, like, you know, hey, tonight on CBS, it's The Amazing Race. I can't imagine CBS is too thrilled with that.
No, yeah. I mean, they're having their own issues. They're trying to get people to watch Amazing Race, and they're not going to take... And
that's one of the reasons why they have the NFL. They use it as a promotional tool for their other shows throughout the week.
Exactly. So that's the one thing. People have argued the NFL is the only thing left that's DVR-proof, and for the most part, that's held up. And I think this is a little bit of an overreaction because the ratings were down 8% last season. But again, if you take out the presidential election, you take out those days of the debates, it was only down about 3%. So it wasn't this drastic fall off that people are speculating to begin with. And I think much of the erosion you can just chalk up to the fact that, again, as older viewers unfortunately die off and younger viewers take their place, it's going to be an issue. But it's an issue for everybody, and the NFL remains the top-rated product for CBS and everybody who is involved with the league. And, yeah, they're not going to take lightly to not promoting their programming, because that's why they pay the money they do.
John, then, do you think the NFL bubble is bursting, or is the sports TV bubble in general?
No, I mean, I think the TV bubble is bursting in general. But as far as the NFL goes in that landscape, eventually the ratings will continue to go down. There's no question about that. But it depends how you gauge things. If you compare it against everything else, it's still great. Everything else is going down as well. So when you compare it, as I said, even an 8% loss, if you want to use that and not put in the mitigating circumstance of the election, that is far less than the average TV show or vehicle in the drops that they've had. So it's just something the entire industry is dealing with, and there's no real answer to it because, as I said, technology is not stopping.
It's not, and this is something where, like in the NBA, you're getting these guys sitting out games, and the networks are saying, "Well, we're paying big money for these games." In the NFL, you don't have guys sitting out, but there's just multiple reasons why the leagues almost have to kind of bow down to the. I mean, do they bow down to the TV? Does TV control these leagues?
Well, they always have, because that's where the money is.
But is it getting worse now because of the fine line of, as people watching on different devices and cutting the cord? And I know, as you said, football, basketball, sports in general are kind of DVR proof. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to DVR a game, avoid all social media and physical contact like Jerry Seinfeld did on Seinfeld. Don't tell me what happened in the Mets game. I VCR, I taped it. I'm not doing that. I don't know a lot of people that are. So I see that it's DVR proof, but people are getting it in different ways. You might watch a game on your phone.
Yeah, they might watch it on the phone. A lot of people watch a game, I put that in quotations, on Twitter, and just kind of look at the play-by-play of people tweeting and sort of look at those GIFs that I mentioned of certain plays, which the NFL tried to stop last season because that was, they felt, was a hit towards their television ratings. And this is, whether it's at some point, there's at least potential that something like YouTube can start paying the money for sports rights that in the past NBC, CBS, ABC, and Fox and ESPN have done. And maybe that's the way it goes, that you have these new formats all of a sudden anteing up big money for these rights. But to this point, it hasn't happened. The NFL's tried it. They've tried those streaming games with Twitter and Yahoo, but that's a drop in the bucket money-wise compared to what they get from the television networks. And their concern is the golden goose is going to die at some point, and these networks are going to wake up one day and say, we just can't afford this because not enough people watch. And that's the big concern from the league standpoint, because if television money goes away, all of a sudden this $14 billion industry could be crippled virtually overnight.
So you do you see, John, a scenario where the networks like CBS, NBC, and Fox get out of that sports genre?
Yeah, I mean, you can envision it. I don't think it's going to happen next year or 5 years. But as things continually progress, there could be a time where CBS and NBC are no longer the top ways of people watch television, and they go over the top, so to speak, and use streaming options because whether it's cheaper or just more desirable for them as far as being able to to watch what they want when they want. And maybe Netflix, maybe YouTube, as I said.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you see a scenario where they go down with the WWE has their own streaming service, the over the air, where you charge them $9.99 a month and you get every game that the NFL, and they produce all the games themselves?
Yeah, I think worst case scenario, that's probably, and a lot of people look at that. Major League Baseball, really advanced media is at the forefront of those streaming services, and they handle all the mechanics for the WWE. And
to say baseball's at the forefront of something is something there too.
Well, that company was so successful they spun it off, Major League Baseball Advanced Media. So now it's its own company. So yeah, they have been, and I think the problem with major sports and the NFL, NBA versus, and even baseball versus something like WWE is people are used to getting the games for free. At least, they consider it free. Obviously, you have to pay your cable bill these days, so technically it's not, but they expect it to be on free television. So to all of a sudden shift from that and say, hey, you got to pay $9.99 a month,
right,
to watch the Eagles, people are going to wake up and say, what the heck? I'm used to turning on the TV, getting it for free. But at some point, yeah, I could see that happening for every league because it's been very successful for World Wrestling Entertainment. And if someone's not willing to pay, sometimes you got to take things into your own hands.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you because I subscribe to the WWE Network, but that's one a la carte. If you have every league now saying, well, I'm going to give you my a la carte, and here's my a la carte, the NFL would probably win out over everybody else. You wonder how sustainable that would be until that bubble quickly burst.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that would be sustainable. I thought, before, way back, when sort of you had the direct TV package come into play where you could watch any out-of-market game. I thought the way the NFL made a mistake at that point. I thought they should have offered sort of each game to each fan and say, if you're a fan of the Chicago Bears and you relocated to Philadelphia, well, you could buy the Bears games or any city in the country. I thought that's the way they should have went back then. They didn't do it, and now it's tough to sort of backtrack and start over.
We're talking with John McMullen here, 97.3 ESPN.com, and don't forget, check out his national NFL coverage at FanRag Sports NFL at JF McMullen on Twitter. All right, John, next week the competition committee is going to get together. We talked yesterday a little bit about the overtime possibility. They said they're not concerned about more ties because of this, but there's a lot of other things that are going to be up on the table here. Touchback experiment, was that a positive or a negative last year?
Well, for the league standpoint, they consider it a positive. I think for the entertainment value, it's a negative. I don't know anyone who doesn't find kickoff returns as an exciting part of the game, and they've done everything humanly possible to take it out, absent of barring the actual kickoff. And I think they're going down that route. They consider it one of the most dangerous plays, and obviously they have legal ramifications and so many lawsuits stemming from previous history that they're so concerned with the safety measure. And that's, by the way, their argument for everything. That's what they're going to argue. The NFL had a conference call today talking about the potential rule changes, and their argument for the 10-minute overtime is safety. Everything they do, they claim, is based on safety. And, hey, I understand it, but it also makes for a far less exciting game.
John, the news is out that the NFL will consider allowing coaches to challenge all penalties. Won't this make the games longer? I mean, we just discussed they're trying to find ways to make them shorter. Doesn't this extend the length of the game?
Well, yeah, but you don't have to worry about that. The Patriots have been arguing for that for years. Understand how the rule changes work. You can propose a rule change. Any team can do it. And this time it's going to be, I believe, the Bills and the Seahawks are putting forth that rule. 24 owners have to agree with it to change it, and that's not going to come close to happening. So you don't have to worry about them challenging, being able to challenge every play. It's just, it's never going to pass.
John, another thing that's going to be new this year, it looks like Dean Blandino, he will be the guy making the reviews. I mean, he'll make the decisions, not the on-field official.
Some people would argue he was doing it at times last year, but
some people would argue that some of his descriptions of the reasons why were not sufficient enough. Like, I don't know that I trust his reviews.
Well, I'll say I think the people who don't trust his views, well, certainly there's a lot of people in Philadelphia because they constantly remember him on the Dallas Cowboys party bus as if he's a big Cowboys fan. But hey, I've argued it for a long time. I've said it numerous times on the show. They should be making these decisions in New York, and it should be Dean Blandino in his staff, and that's how it's going to be. The technology is there to accomplish it. It's going to make things quicker. It's going to make things smoother. And usually, I understand what you're saying, Mike. Sometimes the explanations he hands out when explaining rules and play calls are not sufficient to people. But again, they're arguing they don't like the rule. If anybody knows what the NFL wants, it's Blandino, and he's going to get it right as far as what they want called. Not necessarily that it's a good call or people are going to accept it, but it's what the NFL wants.
And that would fall under the give the league office final say over replay decisions with input from the referee. We're talking with John McMullen. So, again, these are proposed rules changes, John. Of all the proposed rules changes out there, which is the one that you think just gets cha-ching, rubber stamped, yes, approved? Well,
that's rubber stamped. That's already going to be implemented, the fact that Blandino is going to handle in charge of all replays. So they're not even running that through the system where 24 owners have to approve. They're just going to do that autonomously. So as far as what rule changes, I think the 10-minute overtime at least has a solid chance to get approved under the auspices of safety, as I mentioned. As I said, the one that I guarantee is not going to be approved is coaches getting to challenge everything, from holding calls to illegal contacts. That's just not going to happen.
They're also going to allow the referee to make decisions. That's on the table, right, to make the decisions of the plays. So if the answer comes from New York now, they can announce that in the stadium. That was another point of contention, that these people are sitting in their seats because of the commercial break. I know Goodell talked about today having a double box up there, like putting a box up whenever was a replay so that they can play a commercial in one side of the box and show you what's going on the other side of the box.
Yeah, evidently the commissioner is frustrated by having to sit through certain things on television as well, especially the kickoff commercial, then come back and go to another commercial, things like that. But as I said, I mean, it's fine. I don't think there's any problem with it. I don't have an issue with them trying to make the product seem better and flow smoother on television. I just don't think it will have that big of an impact. And, you should do things to help your fans. And if something like that can help the in-stadium fan who is in the dark, you should do it. I think that's a positive move.
There's a lot of other ones. We'll go over them a little bit later on tonight. John McMullen at JF McMullen. He writes a great piece about Roger Goodell trying to chase down something that might not exactly be there. And yes, the problem of football on television, how to get these fans to stay watching the product on the networks. John, always a pleasure, pal.
Hey, thank you, guys.